connection there, like what the people are getting. Different cultures. So, but so far, Ireland has been. You guys have been incredible. I've loved meeting all of you guys. It's been really, really awesome.
Because I saw that you went to the Cliffs of Moher on one of the windiest days that we've had in recent weeks.
I thought I was gonna like get blown off the cliff, man. It was bad.
But you did that drive there and back in the one day. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
Do I speak for all Irish people here when I say we wouldn't do that in the one day? Yeah, okay. Yeah, very, very quietly agreeing with me. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Three of you, yeah.
But you also got to see some Irish dancing when you went for dinner the other night. And then as I was actually doing research, I learned that you're a bit of a dancer yourself, or at least you were when you were
When I was
very
like
young.
8. Yeah, I took tap dancing when I was like 8 years old. I still remember a couple of things, and no, I will not perform them on stage right now.
Dang, he saw where I was going with that one.
Yeah.
What made you decide to take tap?
Actually, wow, I don't think I've ever told this story. When I was like 7 or 8, I was doing one of my first like acting gigs ever. It was in the Wizard of Oz in like the main theater in Atlanta, Georgia, because that's where I'm from. And I loved like I was like a munchkin in the show and like an Ozian, because I was like this tall. And the guy that played the Tin Man, he had this whole like tap dancing like bit, and I just thought it was so cool. I thought like this dude in all this metal gear doing tap dancing. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. So I just wanted to do it. Did it for a couple of years, and then I booked the Walking Dead, so I couldn't really go to weekly classes as much anymore. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you started acting from such a young age. What got you started in the industry?
Well, I started doing it professionally around the same time that I was doing theater stuff, around when I was like 8 or 9. And honestly, it was just random auditions. I had gotten an agent from when I was like 6 or 7, and just doing like commercials and really like small parts in movies, things like that. But then, just audition after audition, and kind of one thing led to another, and I just got really lucky with The Walking Dead.
Yeah, because I know, like, with some child actors, when they look back on some of the ads that they were cast in, like, I know Mila Kunis is one that she was always just like, oh, whenever I see that come up, that always, like, mortifies me. Is there anything that you're kind of like, I hope that stays hidden forever, that we're totally not going to Google afterwards?
There's a bunch of movies, not a bunch, but there's a couple of movies that I did when I was like 14, and yeah, they're not good. I get people actually coming up to me at conventions, and they're like, "Hey, I loved you in that movie that I will not name, so none of you have to suffer through it." And I'm like, "Really? You enjoyed that?" I mean, props to you for sitting through that movie, because I did not think it was very good. But yeah, I have a handful of movies like that. But at the end of the day, it's all about the experience of getting to be on a set and getting to do something really cool, and it's always a great time.
And what were those auditioning processes like when you were so young? Because I remember chatting to Mara Wilson, and she was saying that, like, as she got older, it got more difficult because people were still expecting her to still be like the young child. So did you experience anything similar to that?
Well, it was interesting for me, while I was on The Walking Dead, I really wasn't worried about doing any other projects at the time outside of The Walking Dead, because I was also in school at the same time. Like, I went to normal public high school, and so I was kind of tied up, and I was taking all these crazy hard classes, so I was going to get college credit, but I didn't even end up going to college anyway, so it was a whole, anyways. But yeah, so I didn't really branch out and do a lot of auditions while I wasn't filming during like the off season. So when my character was, spoiler alert, when my character was killed off of The Walking Dead, I had moved out to LA and was just kind of thrown into the deep end. And it's when you're 18, there's a lot more actors, that are really good at what they do than when you're 10 years old. So I suddenly had like a huge wave of competition, and I was like, okay, I should like start taking some classes and like actually, pick up some slack here and get better. So yeah, there was that kind of moment of realization of like, oh, this is like it's a competition now. Like I really gotta push for all these auditions and really put my heart and soul into all of them.
Well, fair play to you. And with The Walking Dead, I know you're a massive fan of the comics. So when you actually got the casting call to play Carl, were you already familiar with the comics at that point, or was it only after you got cast that you liked the comics?
Yeah, pretty well. It was when I got the audition. That's when I went and picked up the comics because I mean, it seemed like the right idea. If it's based off, if anytime I get an audition that's based off of something else, I'm always going to look at the source material to kind of see the vibe. If it's what they're kind of looking for, and but like instantly I was hooked onto the comics and just read all of them all the way through. And I remember actually in season 1, it was like episode 3 or 4 that we were filming, and the comic issue came out. I remember it was issue 75, and it was the one. It was one of the ones where they were in Alexandria, but it was awesome because in the back of that issue was the first. It was like their announcement for like that it was going to be a TV show, and then they put the pictures for all of us like cast as the characters. So they put the picture that they took of myself as Carl and everything and all the other characters. And I saw that and I was like freaking out. Well, like, I'm in a comic book. This is so cool. I went around and had all the other like cast members on set go and autograph all the different pages because it was the coolest thing for me. It was really, really cool.
Wow, and that is now safe in a safety deposit box somewhere.
I have no idea where it is. So it's very unfortunate. Yeah.
Well, that's an oops. And so you're 10 years old, you're cast on this mega production, and you're introduced to the man who's going to play your father, Andrew Lincoln. And he is not a native Atlantean, he is actually a British actor who I absolutely loved in the series Teachers. And then, of course, he was in Love Actually as well. So what was it like meeting him for the first time and then sort of like just like getting to know each other?
It was just so cool meeting everyone and getting to like be on something that I thought was so cool because I just thought that my character, like Carl, ended up being so cool down the line. Like, a 10-year-old like being on a show, it's like it was just the coolest thing ever for me at the time. But the thing about it was that it wasn't really like this huge crazy thing because AMC, the network that produces it in America and distributes it, wasn't like super well known. So they have other shows like Breaking Bad, and they had some other like pretty decent shows, but they never like Breaking Bad didn't really get big until later seasons. And so AMC wasn't a huge network, and The Walking Dead, we weren't given a huge budget. It wasn't really a huge show. Like it was a lot of really long hot days, and yeah, it was a lot of work. But yeah, I just remember those first like few days of meeting everyone was so awesome. I loved it.
Yeah, because I think The Walking Dead was one of the earlier ones, because I know like we borrow The Flash and things like that from like DC Comics, but I think for like The Walking Dead, like that was 11 seasons ago. Like it's going to be finishing up with 11 Part B very shortly, and it's like that was one of the first sort of major TV adaptations that we'd had in a long time. So it kind of was setting the bar, I suppose.
Yeah, well, not only that, but no one cared about zombies at the time. The big thing, if you think back to like 2009, 2010, it was Twilight and vampires, the Vampire Diaries, and all those vampire shows. No one really cared about zombies. So when I remember my dad, when we got the audition, he was like, "A zombie TV show? No one is gonna watch this. Like it's not gonna end well." And at the end of season 1, after the last shot and we wrapped, everyone was just crying because we were like, well, we're never gonna see each other again. We're probably not gonna get picked up for another season, but it was a good run of a good 6 episodes. and here we are, like
11 years
12 years
later.
later. Yeah.
And for such a young kid, like, what was it like for you seeing the extras who had been cast as the zombies? Because now I don't know how many other people feel the same way, but zombies actually they just creep me out. I don't know what it is, but I always like admire the craft, especially in a show like The Walking Dead. So for someone so young to see come to life, pardon the pun, zombies, like, what was that like for you?
So cool. I mean, well, for the zombies, it's like they're you talk to them, they're like normal people. When they say cut, I mean, it's like at these conventions. When you see someone in like a scary costume, it's not really scary because they're just like walking. There's a normal person just walking around, like, whoa, that's cool. That's pretty much how it is, the same kind of thing. So, when they say cut, it's like they'll go and smoke a cigarette or like go eat like a stick of beef jerky or something. You know what I mean? It's it's not it's not freaky. It's our jobs to make it look scary. So the fact that you're under that impression means I did my job.
Oh yeah, I'm also just a very big scaredy cat.
Well, never mind. All right.
Sorry, no shade. And so Carl, he had quite a very interesting story arc because from my perspective, I always saw Carl as being the one that was still kind of clinging on to the fact that humanity was still good and that there was still good in people, even though under these circumstances, there was a lot of people who were sort of turning maybe to, like, so we say, the dark side and things like that. So with the overall story arc for Carl, were you happy with it, or were there parts of it where you're kind of like, that's not the way they did it in the comics?
It's a little bit of both, to be honest, but I think that all of the kind of adaptations that they've done from the comics to the television have been pretty well executed, and the things that they've changed. I mean, you look at Daryl, wasn't in the comics at all, but has come to be like the poster boy of the show, and is like, the iconic character for the show that a lot of people think about when they think about The Walking Dead. So there's a lot of things that they do right in the show that the comics didn't do, and yeah, I mean there are some that I think the comics did better, some that the show did better, but I feel it kind of balances out pretty well.
And because there's always, well, especially like in the later seasons, everyone was kind of split up. So there was a lot of different storylines going on. For your days, were you actually given the whole script, or were you only given like your scenes as such? So were you aware of like what was going on elsewhere, or just what you were involved in?
Yeah, when you work on a show or a movie and you're like in your series regular on a show, they'll give you every script. So I knew what was going on, probably about a few weeks ahead in advance, but I wouldn't. We would, and then also the producers would kind of tell us like, hey, just so you know, this character is gonna not. Is going to get killed off in episode 8. We'd be on like episode 1, So they'd give us a pretty decent heads up, usually, most of the time.
I'd say one of the only times that I've heard, now this may or may not be true, that they did try and keep it as tight-lipped was, of course, when Negan takes out Glenn and Abraham. So were you as surprised at that as we were, or did you know?
I didn't know. No, there was supposedly, okay, so apparently everyone else knew but me, because I've seen like a couple of the other actors being like, oh yeah, the other actors saying that they didn't know. Oh, that's a bunch of BS. They all knew. I didn't know. No one told me. So I was sitting there and I was like, I had a pretty good. I was like, okay, they would have told me if it was me. So I'm clear. They're not gonna kill Rick. Probably not. I was like going down the list trying to like figure out who exactly it was going to be, because it was Glenn in the comics. I was like, well, it's probably going to be Glenn in the show, but I don't really know. But I really didn't know until I got the script and I found out who it was. And the thing was that episode, we actually shot 3 different versions of that episode, because we had someone on the inside was leaking a whole bunch of like, they would, anytime a big character death was coming, they would leak it like months in advance. So we filmed 3 different versions of that scene with 3 different characters getting killed instead of Abraham and Glenn, to try and like throw off the leaks, which added like another week to our production, where I'm having to sit on my knees in gravel and cry for hours and hours. Yeah, it was not fun.
So can I ask, who were the other ones that you filmed?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. One of them was Maggie and Eugene, and then the other one was I think Aaron and Eugene.
Okay.
Yeah,
And so it was always going to be two. There was never just going to be the one. So because it is only one in the comics, as you were saying.
correct. Yeah, yeah.
And from a comic lover's point of view, were you surprised that it was Glenn in the end? Because he had literally just come back into the show as well, only
I
to just be
know.
booted.
Yeah, I know. I personally wasn't surprised because it happened in the comics, so I kind of anticipated that it was coming. But I mean, at the end of the day, it always sucks whenever a member of the cast has to leave the show. It's never fun having to do those death dinners and whatnot. But yeah, it is what it is.
You just touched on something there, like the death dinners. I always thought that that was such a lovely way for you all to kind of like honor each other because because like filming The Walking Dead, it is quite a tough shoot as well, especially for the physical demands on all of you as actors. So, like, I'm assuming you got a death dinner as well?
Yeah, it's funny how like popularized like this whole thing is. In season one, it started out as just one of the characters would get killed off, and so they would all the other cast members would like take him out to their favorite restaurant. But kind of as the seasons progressed and more people started watching The Walking Dead, we started to not be able to do this anymore because we couldn't be like, all right, it sucks that you're dying. Herschel, but it's like we can't do that in like a public place because it does not work. So we had to kind of bring it more like privately, and then but yeah, I did have a death dinner, and everyone was there, and it's like weird. Like it's really nice and cool, but like man, when you're sitting there and it's like it feels like you're being sent off to your death. It's like what is happening? Like they're all talking like you're like they're never gonna see you again. It's like you did so good. I'm like, thanks. I'm gonna see you like tomorrow. you know. But yeah, it was good. Yeah.
And I think Carl's exit storyline really, I don't want to say enraged people because it was actually done in quite a good way in the end, but because it wasn't the way that it had been in the comics, a lot of people were kind of like, what do you mean he's getting killed off? So, like, again, from your point of view, not only as a fan of the comics, but also playing the role, was it a surprise when they took you aside to sort of say, look, this is the direction we're going in?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I had just signed on for a few more years, and I had bought a house down near the set, and then we kind of like sat down and figured out, or I'd been told kind of that what Carl's story was going to be like for the season, even like towards the end of season 8, what his story was going to be like. But then a couple months later, I got the phone call. I was like, well, this is unfortunate. So, and ended up just kind of having to switch gears and figure some other stuff out, and move out to LA to further pursue acting. So yeah.
Did you like the storyline that they created to kind of write you out?
Yeah, I mean, when I first when I was first told about it, it was I was told that he was gonna like crawl down to a sewer and die there. I'm like, man, that is the lamest death for Carl. I'm like, this dude has like been through some serious stuff. Like, but then when I read the script, I'm like, oh, actually, he's like saving all of Alexandria, and there's like I was like, I've been saying for years, I was like, if Carl dies, I want there to be gunfire and explosions, and I got gunfire and explosions, so I'm happy.
And we were talking before about the eye patch, and for me, my initial impression would have been like that you would have been like tripping over like trees or falling down steps, and then you pointed out that it's actually because you physically can't see things, and in the middle of a scene, you could have like a bee or something like flying at you. But also, I suppose because you'd have it on for 10 hours of a day, that must be disorientating when you take it off. So, like, did you find that your eyes were just like not working properly?
It is the weirdest thing. Is there anyone in here that's dressed up as Carl that has the eye patch? Right here. Okay. Yep. We got one. There's a couple of people that I saw here today with the eye patch at the convention, and yeah, it sucks, right? Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's terrible. Yeah. You can't see anything. Yeah. And it's just the fear and adrenaline that runs through your body when you're sitting there in a scene and you're in character and you have to be all serious, you know, you're talking to the other character, and all of a sudden you hear a bee come in from the other side, like just whizzing by your ear, and you're like, oh God, I hope it didn't just land on me because I can't see where it went at all. And you see the other actor like dart their eyes like to the side, like trying to play it all cool, and it's like, it is terrifying. It is absolutely terrifying. 0 out of 10. Would not recommend.
So you moved to LA to pursue more acting, but you've also pursued another career. You started producing music as well.
Yeah, well, actually, I'd been producing music when I was still on the show. I just hadn't, been putting any of it out or anything like that. But yeah, I had a couple of years after we moved out to LA of touring and playing shows and whatnot. It kind of died down since COVID and whatnot. But yeah, it's a fun hobby to do on the side.
Yeah, and what would be, say, like some of your musical inspirations for it?
I produce mainly EDM, so but like more. What's the word? There's a cinematic. That's kind of like cinematic EDM is kind of how I classify the music that I make, because I take inspiration from people like Hans Zimmer, but also people like Flume or like anyone, Porter Robinson, anyone that knows electronic music. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun, kind of exploring another like kind of creative outlet, and the dream is to eventually like write, direct, produce, score my own film.
And you actually touched on something there as well with directing. Like we know a lot of the former Walking Dead cast members have been able to come back and direct, and there are quite a few spin-offs now as well. So if the call came to be just like, hey, do you want to chance your arm and try this? Like, would you be up for it?
Absolutely, yeah. I got to shadow one of the directors for Fear the Walking Dead, he's doing another one right now, but I'd known him like since forever. He directed his first episode of television that he directed was The Grove, the episode with the Look at the Flowers one. That episode was the first episode that he'd ever directed. So I was like, this is the perfect guy to shadow because he knows what he's doing. And I got to see kind of like behind the scenes stuff of how it was going. Because I was trying to get a TV show that I had written of my own off the ground. But yeah, if that opportunity ever came up, would absolutely take it up.
Fantastic. And what are you working on at the moment, or are you allowed to say?
I don't really want to say anything yet because it's like so early in the process, and like it's all there. It's just it's not ready quite yet.
Awesome. So what you're saying is stay tuned.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. Well, on that note, we can open it up to the floor. So for those of you who haven't been in for the Q&As yet, we've got there's someone ready and waiting. I love it.
Look at
There's
that.
2 microphones on either side here.
Can you record me while I'm asking the question?
Hope you guys aren't just like rushing to leave. That would suck.
All right. Well, you're ready and waiting, so let's kick it off.
Like obviously, like I'm a huge fan, and I love some of the fight scenes in there, like particularly the mid-season finale of season 4 with the prison fight, seeing you going around with the Winchester. But I just want to know, what was your favorite personally fight scene you like to do as Carl during the series?
Oh man, I didn't get to do a ton of like really cool stunts. I didn't. Funny thing, I didn't even have my first like melee zombie kill until the end of season 5, which is insane because like I didn't even realize. No, sorry, it was like halfway through season 5. My bad. It was at Gabriel's church, and when we were like choreographing the scene, and I was holding like the knife, and I was like, wait a minute, I've never done this before. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, wait, we gotta like rehearse this a little bit because this is my first time doing this. But yeah, it's trying to remember the coolest one. The coolest stunts that we did for me was were in my final episode, because having like all the explosions, like when you're in a scene and you turn around and a building explodes, it is crazy. So yeah, definitely like the last episode with cars exploding, houses exploding, everything blowing up. It's really cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
Cheers.
All right, we're going to alternate between each side. So we're going to go this side now.
Hi, I took a picture with you earlier, but I didn't get a chance to ask you some questions, so I guess this is my chance. The first question I have is I want to be an actor when I'm older, so do you have any tips on what to do?
Man, good luck. It's the biggest advice that I could give for anyone that wants to get into acting is to stay persistent because you'll go for probably years without callbacks or booking anything. That's kind of where I'm at right now, and all it takes is one yes, because that one yes could be completely life changing. That's what it was like with The Walking Dead. I auditioned for like a million things before Walking Dead, and while I was on Walking Dead, a lot of like you see any like young kid in a show, I probably auditioned for it, like Spider-Man, Han Solo, like all of these, all those things I auditioned for. So, but all it takes is one yes, because yeah, it could be life changing.
My second question is, what was your favorite scene to film in The Walking Dead?
You know, my favorite scene, it was probably the entirety of in season 4, the pudding episode, but not because of the pudding. So that episode was straight out of the comic book, like start to finish. That was just completely like adapted from a single issue in the comics, and it was just so cool to be able to bring those scenes, specific scenes from the comic book, onto TV, where they'd be shooting in the same angles as like the frames in the comics, and actually that episode had my audition scene in it from before I started on the show. Yeah, the scene where Carl is like yelling at Rick and everything. That was it was a lot different when we actually did it, but that was my audition scene, which was really cool.
And then my final question is, who was the nicest overall best cast member to work with in any of your projects?
Dude, everyone that I've worked with has been so like incredible and supportive and everything. But the guy who played Rick, Andy, was like just the coolest dude ever. He showed up to set every day, knowing every word on that script inside and out. He even knew my lines. Like if I got like a line wrong, he would correct me. Or like because we'd be like going over the stage direction, trying to like rehearse and choreograph these scenes, and he'd be like, no, it says that Carl walks over to, and he would lay out the specific thing, and I'd be like, dude, what? How are you doing that? And it made me feel really embarrassed. I'm like, man, you know my lines. I don't even know. God. But anyways, he was just a huge inspiration for not only myself but everyone else on the set. The main like character on a cast is the one who sets the tone for how the set is, and he set an incredible like down to earth, humble tone for the cast and the crew, and I think plays a huge part as to why the first few seasons of the show were so incredible.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, man.
So before we go to this question, I just want to jump on something that you said there, because I had heard the rumor and then I totally forgot to ask you about it. So you auditioned for Spider-Man.
Yeah, but like me and like 1,000 other people. Actually, if you guys have seen season 9, the kid who plays Henry, the older version of Henry, Matt Lentz, I'm good friends with him in real life, but it was actually down between like him and Tom Holland and like one other dude. So he was way closer than I was to being Spider-Man.
But that must have been a very cool experience to get in to try.
I was a nervous wreck. I completely bombed that audition. I'm gonna be real with you guys. It was I walked out of that and I was like, I just blew the coolest audition of my life. It was a bummer.
It's okay. There's another one. There's going to be lots of other Marvel films coming up, I'm sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, now, next question.
So, is it true that you have a cheesy bird mess?
There's a lot of people confused here. It's from that's from the bad lip reading thing, but like the first one. So there's the one with Carl Papa. You guys know that one? Okay, so there's that one. But then the first bad lip reading for The Walking Dead Yeah, it's a thing. Something about a cheesy bird mess. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Thank
But
you.
yes, thank you for that. Yes. No, I don't have a cheesy bird mess.
Can you do the dreet thing? The dreet.
Dreet. I can't roll my R's. That's embarrassing. I know.
Thank you.
That's the best I can do. Sorry, man.
All right, back over this side.
Hello, I was just wondering, what's your favorite Walking Dead character other than Carl?
Michonne, for sure. Yeah, Michonne is so sick. Like in the comics, Michonne's my favorite character. On the show, Michonne's my favorite character. And Denai is just an incredible person to work with, inside and out. She's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Back this side.
Hey. Hello. So you were talking about the superhero movies a while ago, but Kirkman also wrote like Invincible. So if you ever got, if there was ever like a live action or whatever for the Invincible, would you be interested in it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've been trying to get into voice acting a little bit. I did. I played a role on an anime that'll be coming out in the next like year or so, I think. So yeah, I would. But like to answer your question, yeah, I would love to do a live action thing of some sort. That'd be so cool for Invincible.
Thank you. Back this side.
How you going? I've got 2 questions, if you'll have me. The first one is, are you still in contact with everyone's favorite TV dad, Andrew Lincoln, or any of the other cast members?
Yeah, I get to see them at conventions most of the time. So, you know, it's not like we're ever not in contact. But for Andy, this dude is living in like the 1700s. He doesn't know how to text. Like the entirety of him being on the show, he had a flip phone. Like I'm being real with you. He had a flip phone. He didn't know. Like we'd have to like text his wife to like be able to coordinate anything with him ever. And like trying to email him, forget it, man. Like I sent him an email a couple of years ago. He didn't get back to me for like 4 weeks. I think it was like a happy birthday email. But yeah. But other than that, I'd love to keep in contact with all the other guys that come to these. It's great.
My other question is, would you ever consider doing a worldwide stadium tour where you show up at the venue, perform Karl Popper, and then go home?
I can't sing. That's the thing. And so, you know, I would love to, I would just have to like lip sync the whole time, and then people would just get mad. So, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, back on this side.
Hi, so earlier you mentioned Twilight, so I just want to know, are you Team Edward or Team Jacob?
I haven't seen any of the Twilight movies.
Okay, but just what would you think you'd be?
Would you be team vampire or team werewolf?
Well, I love Robert Pattinson in the new Batman.
Yes.
He killed it. He did
So
so
good.
good. So Team Edward?
Edward, yeah.
Team Edward.
Okay, right answer, thank you.
Yeah.
Back on this side.
Who do you think is the best villain in The Walking Dead?
I'm so sorry. Say that one more time.
Who do you think is the best villain in the
Best villain.
in The Walking Dead?
The governor. Yeah, he's. I feel like so many people go out like say that Negan's the best one. Dude, the governor straight up murdered his entire town, like 30-something people. Like he is a bad dude. Like that is just some. Yeah, it's hardcore.
And he cut off Rick's hand in the comics.
He did. In the comics, he's so much worse. Yeah, that's the crazy part. They would have toned him down for TV, and he still is insane.
I was like, yeah, that's how you know when someone's bad, when like the TV version is the toned down version.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Back this side.
Hi, I'm just wondering, what is your favorite season out of the entire show?
I feel like some of the seasons at the prison were just so cool, like seasons 3 and 4. Because I was such a huge fan of the comics, we were bringing and that was actually some of our first like scenes on sound stages. We could replicate the sets to be really similar to how they were in the comics, and it was so cool, like walking around on that set, because they built the prison over like on top of the sound stages that we have that look like big warehouses, and so they turned that those into prisons. Like they put like fake brick walls on the outside, and they put like the metal fences and the watchtowers on the outside of them. So getting to do that was just so cool, and I feel like Carl's storylines during like seasons 3 and 4, he grew. Like if you look from the beginning of season 3 or the end of season 2 to like the end of season 4, he's like a completely different character. So they gave Carl a lot of awesome growth, and it was an awesome show during that time. Like every episode was sick. It was really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, back this side.
Is there anything you would have liked to see in the show like that were in the comics?
Anything that wasn't in the comics that I would have liked to see in the show?
That was in the comics that weren't in the show, yeah.
Right. I don't know. I feel like they brought a lot of. They brought most of the stuff from the comics into the show. They more just kind of like added stuff in on top of it. I don't know, to be honest. I wish I had a good answer. Do you have? Is there something that you have in mind specifically?
Maybe like keep Andrea in it because she was like good in the comics, but I didn't like her in the show. So.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't make her very likable in the show. Yeah, no, but Andrea in the comics is an awesome character. She's really, really cool. Yeah, it would have been cool to have Laurie Holden in there for a bit longer. She's an amazing, amazing person. If any of you have ever met her, she's incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, back to this side.
Okay, so I have 2 questions. My first one is, how was it like still being in school while also going in like and acting at the same time?
It really wasn't that bad. I didn't have to move to be on the show because they cast Carl locally. So I didn't have to go anywhere. I still had all my same friends before I was on the show, and at the same time, I was already doing other projects before then, so it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibilities for me to have to miss a few days to like go film something. But yeah, it was when I got into high school, because the high school was like kind of a pool of a bunch of different like middle schools. I did get my fair share of corals yelled at me in the hallways, and people asking for pictures of me or with me, and I'm like, please, don't post it anywhere because I don't want people coming to my school. People actually did end up coming like to my school, and they would come to my school and like ask the people at the front desk to like for me, basically. Like, can we meet Chandler? And they were like, no, this is a school. Leave. Like, what? I'm in the middle of class. Like, what? But yeah, they would come to my school. It was crazy.
Wow, because I was going to ask you about like fandoms and things like that, because of course like The Walking Dead was such a big show, but to hear that they actually showed up at your school, that is crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty nuts. But most of the kids that I like had classes with and everything were pretty cool. But they didn't really care about it, basically, because at the end of the day, I was still doing all the same work that they were. It wasn't like, if anything, it was tougher because I would have to miss it to work, and then I'd have to come back home after working for 10 hours and do more and do schoolwork, do homework. So it was it was a lot, but it is what it is.
My other question was, since you were so young when you started, were there any scenes that like scared you to film?
No, I mean, kind of like I was saying earlier, it's our job to make things look scary. So the fact that you're asking that question means I did my job. Thank goodness.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was just wondering, what character would you bring back that died? Because, yeah. What character would you bring back that died if you could? Well, except for
I would
you,
love to
of
have a
course.
job again. I think, let's see. I haven't watched season 10 or 11 yet. So I'm just trying to think of honestly, I feel like Glenn, to bring back Glenn would be really cool, because I feel like in the show they did it would have been like good with just Abraham, you know, and that would have been fine, but you know, they had to kill off Glenn too because, you know, the comics. But to have him back in the show, having that like lighthearted dynamic would have been really nice.
Thank you.
Okay, we won't tell Michael you didn't pick him.
And Michael and Abraham. Yeah.
Hi, I was just wondering, because you mentioned the other cast members like got to eat their favorite restaurants for their death dinner. So what do you have for yours?
Well, mine, we just had my death dinner like at my house, and we just got like a caterer to come and then, you know, and bring food. Actually, I think we had the catering for the set actually come and bring some food. But yeah, it wasn't anything super special, you know.
Also, because you were so young, like being on The Walking Dead, did you feel like you ever missed out on like childhood events, or did it like make it better?
No, because I went to public school. You know, I was outside of the show. I was a normal kid. You know, I would pretty much just come home from work and I'd hop on my computer, play video games with my friends, or I was really into League of Legends for a while, and so me and my buddies, they'd grab we all had like laptops, and so we'd be like, all right, League Friday at my house, and so they'd all come over and we'd drink just like Mountain Dew or something and just get like, cracked out of our minds on sugar and caffeine, and yeah. So I mean, outside of that, I was a pretty normal kid, so I don't feel like I missed out on much of anything.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Hi. I've got one question. What was who was your favorite actor to work with in the show?
Well, yeah, like I was saying earlier, Andy, the guy who played my dad, he was just top to bottom, an incredible dude, awesome to work with, and yeah, he was just great. I mean, everyone is incredible to work with. Like they really put together an amazing cast that knows what they're doing, and yeah, did an awesome job.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Well, I think that's actually all we have time for. But everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And of course,
seriously, guys, thank you for all your questions, everything. I really appreciate it.
And a massive thank you to Chandler Riggs.
Thank you, guys. See you later.